said he was qualified, so he whooped his ass, while he was in there. Now, the other stuff that happened, it went down the way it did, man.
I would like to wish you all the Brits to go fuck yourself.
Wow, that really is good. I recommend it. It really does hit different, this stuff. Prime. Well done, Logan. Welcome back to Grey Talks Wrestling. Let's chat about Great American Bash 1989. I'm going to kick it off with a battle royal. And this is just another attempt at them trying to get something over like the Royal Rumble is. And every company down the years, even today, they try their best to try and do something that can be as nearly as good as, if not better than the Royal Rumble. But they all flop. The genius that was Pat Patterson and this creation, nothing will ever touch it. Right here is proof. This was just ridiculous. You had 2 rings. And once one man was eliminated from one ring, he went to the next ring. And then you had, when there was one man left standing in each ring, they were supposed to fight each other, but that didn't happen because they were tag team partners. And the winner was getting a bit of cash, bit of dough, and they split the pot. Why wouldn't they do that? That made sense, I suppose. The Skyscrapers, very impressive. Sid Vicious, Dan Spivey, Little Green, but we know what happens with Sid Vicious. Dan Spivey, on the other hand, the less said the better, I suppose. We move anyway. Brian Pillman versus Wild Bill Irwin. Now, we all know Brian Pillman. Very talented. Just a shame what happens to him in years in the future from now. He was a bright talent back then. And Wild Bill Irwin, many of you probably won't remember. And many of you, maybe some of you do. He was the goon. That's right, the geezer that ran around as an ice hockey player when Vince McMahon had an obsession with every wrestler having a job. Their gimmick was they had a job, they had a career path, whatever it was, from a dustman to a plumber to an ice hockey player. Remember those days, those bleak days, can't wait to get to them. This is going to be an exciting journey. Anyway, Brian Pillman defeated Wild Bill Irwin in an okay match. It lasted about 10 minutes. Then we move to a tag team match. We got to see the Skyscrapers in tag team action, going up against the dynamic dudes who were on a roll after the last one where we saw them beat the Samoan Swat Team. But they didn't have much luck against the Skyscrapers. These two, yes, this was a hard to watch tag match. It lasted 9 minutes. Why? Everyone in the match was just, you could tell, just green. Like Shane Douglas, Sid Vicious, we know they go on to greater things, but Johnny Laryngitis and Dan Spivey. Dan Spivey was talented. He had potential. But Johnny Laryngitis just ruined this for me. Like, the Skyscrapers did have potential to go far, in my opinion. They could have worked as a team. It's just a shame that the booking in WCW wasn't up to par. One match that actually nearly stole the show for me was Jim Cornette versus Paulie Dangerously in a Tuxedo match. These two worked their asses off. I thought this was okay, considering the athletic ability of Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette. This was actually really good. They told a good story, the match worked, and the right person won. I enjoyed it. Steiner Brothers up next, and this is the start of their career as a tag team, the two brothers, with a good win here against the Varsity Club. Rick Steiner been feuding with them for quite a while, since he was kicked out of the Varsity Club, or he left the Varsity Club, whichever way you want to see it. They were able to defeat Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotunda in a wild match. It was a Texas Tornado match, and you didn't see these sort of matches back then, really. Not a lot on the main two companies, really. You didn't see like what Kevin Sullivan and Rick Steiner were doing outside. They were just beating the shit out of each other with weapons and just going. It was wild. It was a wild brawl. Inside the ring, you had more of a wrestling technical match between Scott Steiner and Mike Rotunda, but the Steiners were able to pick up the win. And we know how their career goes and what legends they become. As for Kevin Sullivan and Mike Rotunda, for me, this was their best day ever we're going to get, really. Kevin Sullivan goes on to the Dungeon of Doom. Less said about that, the better. And Mike Rotunda becomes IRS. Ugh. Singles match for the NWA World Television title. And this was great, because the Great Muta against Sting was phenomenal. It's where the show took it up a bit of a notch now. It was kind of lagging along a little bit, but from the Texas Tornado match actually onwards, and then we had Sting and Great Muta. It was a fantastic match. First time these two have faced off, and I want to see more. I can't wait to see more. I know there's more out there to watch, and I'm looking for it, because this was fantastic. The ending with the double pin, probably the right call, because I want to see more, and there's a story there, and there's more to see. One of the best matches of the night, in my opinion. Then we move to Lex Luger, and I gotta say, last few shows I've watched, Lex Luger's been good. He's had some very good matches. He's impressed me, and right here he's carried to another great match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. It's supposed to be a no DQ match. Luger, now heel, gets the match changed to an original, just normal wrestling match, and he wins by DQ. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat gets himself DQ with the use of a chair, but this was a very good match, and I'm looking forward to see where they go with this one. I remember where it goes, but it's nice to go back and see it, because you just didn't appreciate how good they were. Especially Luger back then. How good he actually was. It wasn't all Steamboat. You got to admit, yeah, Steamboat's one of the best of all time, but Luger was there as well. He did help a little bit. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for WarGames. Love a WarGames, didn't you? Especially when you got the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, and Steve Williams, Dr. Death, going up against the Fabulous Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team. That's right, the forefathers of the bloodline. They were there in the cage doing their thing. It was a brilliant WarGames, underrated one. Really enjoyable. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you do. Very good, because you got the Road Warriors, you got the Midnight Express, two of the best tag teams of all time, along with the Freebirds and Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Jimmy Garvin. There is a conversation to be had. What were the better Freebirds? People are obviously going to say it was when Buddy Roberts was in there. And I've watched that stuff, and it was very good. They were very good. Were probably more over, but Jimmy Garvin was good in his own right, in my opinion. The Samoan SWAT team, fantastic. I've already talked about them in previous videos, or previous video, and I mentioned that, yeah, when they went to the WWF, that stupid name. Why didn't they keep this? Samoan SWAT team, far better than the Head Shrinkers. But this WarGames match, like I said, phenomenal. Very underrated. One of my favourites because of the tag teams you've got in there. Some of the best tag teams of all time. Along with Steve Williams. But yeah, good match. Really enjoyed it. Right team won. Very violent. And you had Paul Ellering, Paulie Dangerously outside doing their thing as well. It's fun to watch. Probably the best match on the show. Then you had the main event. Ric Flair versus Terry Funk for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Two of the greatest of all time. Without doubt. And they're older here, more experienced here, but they can still put on a bloody good match. And this was a bloody good match. Extremely bloody. Loads of claret everywhere. Loved it from start to finish. Just two guys, just the greatest of all time. Just two goats in the ring. Just proving why. Proving why they are legitimately two of the best of all time. Fantastic. You had your wrestling, then they went to brawls, wild brawls, smashing each other with weapons. It was just fantastic. Just fantastic match. You weren't seeing like the WWF put those sort of matches on at this time. They were knocking it out of the park. It was just a wild brawl. And then what happened afterwards, the brawl with Muta getting involved, Sting getting involved, it just brawling all over the building. Terry Funk just throwing chairs about like a madman. Legitimate. You can see, even now you think, he was a bit loony back then. Fucking hell. You can see why people believed he was literally a madman. Great show, gotta say. From the ones I've watched so far in 1989, this one by far the best. From NWA, from WCW, from WWF. This one, top of the bill. But all those WrestleMania out the water. Anything else they've done so far in 1989, this show was the best one so far. Yeah, you had very good matches in the other NWA shows with Ric Flair and Steamboat back to back. But then this, you had Flair and Funk, you had the WarGames. Steamboat and Luger, very, very good match. You had Sting and Great Muta. You had the Steiner Brothers against the Varsity Club in the Texas Tornado match. It was a very good show. Yeah, you had your bullshit at the beginning with the Battle Royal, which was okay, but once you get to match 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, very, very good. Top level stuff. Worth going to watch. It's going to take some beating for this. Because for me, so far, this is the best show in 1989. Let me know what you think down below. I think I've said enough. This has been Grey Talks Wrestling. Thank you very much to everyone that's been watching these videos. You're absolute legends. All I need you to do, if you haven't done it already, is subscribe. See you next time.